Good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. It's my day off. I don't get soda very often anymore. So, Dr. Pepper. Excuse me, welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do the disclaimers, we're going to shoot through today's videos pretty quickly. There's not going to be really any rants, at least not until we get past the disclaimers. Because day off, work Saturday, day off Sunday. I want to make the most of my day before I have to get on tomorrow. Alright, folks, in the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, as you can see them here, which is going to be the topic of this video today. Small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks' first article in regard to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following. Trigger warning. We're going to talk about some disturbing stuff. Rape, sexual assault, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys up on multiple substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after and lying about drag queens and trying and failing to defund public libraries to actually do his job. And you got a governor. What can I say about Missouri's governor? Send help. For the last few of us still stuck here because we're too broke to leave, send help. Alright? Please read that article. Share it on all your social media. You're going to see also all the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones, alright? This channel is marked trigger warning, not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion. We speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they're watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised, alright? So, this popped up on my feed today. You all remember when I was talking about the protests that happened out in Boston a few weeks ago against the Judge Rotenberg Center, right? We all remember that? Because I went on a pretty long rant. Good. NeuroClastic was there. I would have been if I could, believe me. I would have been there if I could have. Point is, apparently, you remember ABAI, don't you? That is the Applied Behavior Analysis International, the ones that recently dropped their so-called support of the JRC. Let's get to reading, shall we? NeuroClastic. Let us see who is making these threats so we can hold our community accountable. ABAI accused NeuroClastic of inciting violence when we were protesting shock torture and multiple autistic people killed at the Judge Rotenberg Center. Remember, up until this last previous year, ABAI has had a representative from the JRC as a speaker at every single one of their conventions, every year. They have been one of the strongest allies of the Judge Rotenberg Center, bar none. Bar none. They supposedly dropped their support, but now they're throwing allegations at NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit, folks, that JRC has targeted directly, and I'm supposed to believe this is a coincidence. I don't like conspiracy theories. Most of it sounds like something that somebody thought up during a bad acid trip, but this one here doesn't seem a conspiracy theory. At least not to me. ABAI is known for their blind-faced absolute support of this place. Now they want to point an accusing finger at people like NeuroClastic, a place already threatened with a defamation lawsuit by the JRC, I might add, saying that we were inciting violence. Well, I should say NeuroClastic was inciting violence. I don't think that's coincidence, do you? Let's read further. After lots of probing and demanding information, it was disclosed that a random unnamed person somewhere on the internet, who may or may not be autistic, said that people at the JRC deserved to be bitch slapped. So NeuroClastic got scapegoated as violent over that by ABAI. Really? Really? Because I've heard worse about the JRC. I've said worse. I can guarantee you that. Does that mean I'm going to go over there and just start inciting violence against the staff? No. I'm not suicidal. Cops aren't known to be friendly towards my kind. I'm not going to do anything that is going to paint a larger target on my back than there already is. All right? Let's read on, shall we? We have to create reference lists for everything we say, so BCBAs stop asking us to prove obvious statements of fact. They rate our lived experience to us as anecdotal. Yeah, no, they really do. I've been up against this fight now for 16 years since the beginning. But that's just your life. It's still more life experience on the spectrum that I have and you don't, Karen. Sam. Yet they will wheel out any autistic person who will defend the institution of ABA to share their anecdotes. Isn't that the truth? And don't get me started on freaking Bill Shatner, because I know that sounds off topic, but that is an individual who has targeted us for years. Years. Yeah. You thought Sia was bad? Will Shatner is his own freaking category, all because any of us actually dared to challenge ABA. I wish to God I was kidding. Moving on. That's not representation, it's tokenism. It's shameless. They always, 100% of the time, show how little they are actually listening to autistics by trivializing all our concerns as if we only have a problem with a hand over hand and forced eye contact. They do, folks. They do. When they come and they talk about us advocates, you've seen Dr. Israel do it too. They tell you that those are our only concerns. No. It's being forced to mask every day of our lives. It's being forced to create a neurotypical mask and never allowing us to take it off. I shouldn't have to explain the kind of psychological damage that can do to one's mental health when you are forced to be something that you're not every second of every day of your life. And if you do not, then you're a problem. And when you're the problem, folks, you'd be surprised what people can get away with in being discriminatory against us when we're not cooperating. Moving on, there's such an extreme emphasis on behavior and respectability politics, like only discourse that meets diplomatic standards is valid and only compliant autistics are worth hearing. Meanwhile, BCBAs who do work with us are threatened and intimidated by people in ABA. This is what I've been talking about for a good long period. That's what's wrong with the medical model. The JRC is just one of the most extreme cases for it. They only feel like we should be able to get up there and be listened to when we look like, talk like, basically do everything like them. When I was doing this in a more professional career capacity, I can tell you, well, I can't actually tell you, the level of exhaustion, the mental health hell that I went through. Because when I did those conferences, this is how the persona of the doll was born, folks. I had masks before, obviously. The doll is the most evolved version of that said mask. Perfect makeup, perfect neurotypical mannerisms, perfect acceptable neurotypical talks and small talk. And I had to do all of this, all of it, including going out and mingling after an entire day of forcing myself to be neurotypical. I then had to go out and do social niceties with the neurotypicals afterwards in order to get things done politically. I was exhausted, folks. I was mentally, physically exhausted all the time. Granted, I still am, but it's in a different capacity than back then. You know what I mean? There's a difference between masking when you're on a phone job and masking in person, where you not just have to mask the way that you talk and how you speak to others, but how you look, how other people perceive you. Yeah. And a few times that I didn't, it's the one part of my old job I really don't miss. This is a reflection of the culture of ABA. They destabilize autistic children, then point at them as if the kids have behavior problems. They do the same thing to adults, autistic or not, who point out the obvious. We are looking for any sign that there is some nuanced understanding, but this parliamentary meeting was 2 hours of playing victim, respectability politics, denying culpability while unironically demonstrating the behaviors autistics have grievances with, and minimizing concerns. They reduce narratives to glittering generalities. That's not science. It's propaganda 101. We firmly stand behind the findings of the Joint Committee on Disability Matters with regards to ABA and PBS for violating UNCRPD for reasons we will take in time to make clear. So we're kind of going through a several tweet thread here. So let it put it this way. When I was actually in it, I called it playing ball. When I would come in there with my perfect, acceptable attire, my makeup on, my small talk game perfect, when I did not do any kind of visible seeing version of stimming that the normals could detect, then they're willing to listen to me. One of the biggest ways to get them to not listen to me is when I started to attack their nonsense. Say they want us to have this appeasing tone, right? One can only take that for so long. And what they do when we disagree, when we don't take on that appeasing tone, when we don't put on a persona in order to make ourselves more palatable for them, that's when they begin to do, well, crap like this. Where they'll have, JRC will have their little pets go and say, "You're inciting violence." If it reminds you of AH, should. Really should. Because it's the same thing. If we show any kind of standing up for ourselves, any kind of we refuse to comply with your demand that we mask and pretend to be someone else to make you people more comfortable, that's when crap like this starts coming out. Now, the rest of this thread is probably not going to have much to do with that particular incident, but it is very educational about ABA and the broader issues within the medical model and why the neurodiversity movement and the medical model have been bumping heads for decade after decade after decade. Let's finish up, shall we? We do make them clear again and again because we are forever being put in positions to expend all our energy to keep up with the oversimplified, dishonest narrative monopoly from autism industrial complex and especially the behavior industry. Imagine if instead of saying that they are listening to us 50 times in a 2-hour span, they actually invited us to speak for ourselves or showed any sign of actually understanding us. This was institutional gaslighting. Not just gaslighting. There's a twofold thing going on here when people like ABAI do this sort of thing. It's a way that they can use to get the broader community not to listen to us. If they can portray us as being out of control people with mental health issues, they can get people to dismiss anything that we say, whether it is relevant or not. We're going to go ahead and close on that one, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So, folks, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.